Umaru Dikko was no ordinary politician. He was a powerful advisor and prominent minister under President Shehu Shagari's administration. But as the administration falls on New Year's Eve 1983, everything changed. Dikko became a man wanted by the new regime in Nigeria and targeted by Mossad in London. This is the story of the Mossad covert plot to kidnap Umaru Dikko in London in 1984. Welcome to this edition of Hisbu Media. My name is Gabriel Adidia. Umaru Dikko was a powerful advisor and a prominent minister under President Shehu Shagari's administration in Nigeria's Second Republic. He served as a Minister of Transport and also headed the Presidential Task Force on Rice. Dikko was also Shagari's brother-in-law. With the military coup on New Year's Eve 1983, the new sheriff was Major General Muhammadu Buhari. He accused the old regime and Dikko personally of stealing billions of petrodollars from the people. Buhari quietly warned that his regime would ensure that corrupt officials and their agents would be brought to book. That placed Dikko squarely in the crosshairs of the new regime. Dikko also knew he was a target as armed soldiers went looking for him at his official quarters in Ikoyi, Lagos, and ransacked the area. Dikko claimed his family, son, and elderly family members were also harassed by the military authorities. With the assistance of friends and a handful of raw cash, Dikko drove his car to Nigeria's semi-border where he bribed his way through and traveled to Togo's capital, Lomé. From here, he boarded a KLM flight to London via Amsterdam. Dikko denied the claim that he disguised as a woman to get through the border. He claimed that he was dressed in traditional male northern attire on the fateful day. He joined a host of other Nigerian fugitives in London. Some of the other fugitives included Adisa Akinloye, the national chairman of the NPN, Joseph Wires, former Senate President, and Richard Akinjide, former Attorney General and Justice Minister. London became a safe haven for former government ministers as the new military regime continued to detain, try, and jail deposed politicians for massive corruption. Meanwhile, from a rented flat in London's Bayswater district, Dikko became an outspoken critic of the new regime. He appeared on British TV and granted interviews which condemned the Buhari regime and lobbied the British Parliament, hoping to rally international pressure on the regime. Dikko was obviously making a bad situation worse. Back home in Nigeria, the new rulers wanted him back in chains to face a military trial. He quickly became the #1 name on Buhari's most wanted list. But the question is, how do you find one man in London, a city of about 7 million people at the time, when he is surrounded by British police, human rights lawyers, and the press? And the answer for the Nigerian regime was simple: the Mossad, the Israeli legendary spy agency. At that time, Israel and Nigeria had no formal diplomatic relations. In 1973, through the influence of the Organization of African Unity (OAU), Nigeria terminated diplomatic relations with Israel. But the two countries shared a quiet understanding, as Israel wanted Nigeria's oil while Nigeria needed Israeli arms and Israeli know-how in dirty deals. Nigeria was supplying more than 50% of Israel's crude oil in exchange for military hardware. From Israel's perspective, the continuation of oil flow from a country with a high Muslim population was strategically important. However, with the emergence of the new military regime in Nigeria on January 1, 1984, the continuation of oil flow was in doubt. According to Gordon Thomas in his book, Gideon Spies, The Secret History of the Mossad, the Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir was concerned that the new regime might interrupt the supply of oil from Nigeria. According to Thomas, Israel saw an opening to gain favor with the new regime. With Dikko still at large and the regime unaware of his location in London or how to bring him back to Nigeria to face charges, Israel offered to track Dikko down using its formidable intelligence agency called the Mossad. However, other historians argued otherwise. For instance, Mark Siolun says, "It seems implausible that Israel will independently offer the services of its intelligence agency solely to maintain the supply of oil." So, how did the Mossad, the most feared intelligence agency in the world, got into the mix? For Mark Siolun, however, it seems more plausible that the new regime, through its network of contact among Israeli security establishments and businessmen, solicited the intervention of Mossad. After all, there were several senior officials in the Nigerian army that had long-standing association with businessmen and security agents in Israel. For instance, former head of state General Olusegun Obasanjo had established an agricultural farm with the assistance of Israeli experts, including a contractor called Elisha Cohen. This is not to suggest, however, that Obasanjo had any involvement in the Dikko affair. Notwithstanding, in a subsequent article by Haaretz, an Israeli newspaper, a claim was made that Cohen was instrumental in securing Israeli cooperation. The director of Mossad, Nahum Admoni, traveled to Nigeria's then capital, Lagos, on a Canadian passport to meet with the new head of state, General Muhammadu Buhari. It was revealed that Admoni made Buhari an offer he could not resist. So, what was this offer? He offered to find, arrest, and repatriate Nigeria's most wanted former politician at the time, Umaru Dikko, to face justice in Nigeria. However, Buhari wanted more, so a few conditions were agreed upon. 1. That apart from physical custody, the regime wanted the location of the offshore account where Dikko's loot were deposited. 2. An undertaking by Israel to cooperate with Nigeria's National Security Organization, NSO. And finally, for Israel or Mossad to take no credit when Dikko is eventually captured. These conditions were perfect for the Mossad director. He agreed and put his formidable resources within Mossad to work. However, according to later accounts, the Buhari's regime spent about $6 million to secure Mossad's assistance. So, which of these is correct? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. So, what is the Mossad? The Israeli Institute for Intelligence and Special Attacks, Mossad, was formed on December 13, 1949 as a central institute for coordination in Israel. The formation of the Mossad was recommended by Reuven Shiller to Israel's first Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion. The organization is today simply known as Mossad, a Hebrew word meaning institution. By the 1980s, Mossad has evolved into the most sophisticated and feared covert intelligence agency in the world, and it continues to maintain that status to this day. Its exploit has been legendary. The Mossad's notable successes include the famous capture of Nazi war criminal Adolf Eichmann, who was tracked down by Mossad to Argentina. In a daring operation, he was captured by Mossad on May 11, 1960 and smuggled to Israel, where he was tried and executed. Mossad also carried out a spectacular car bomb assassination of the Red Prince Ali Hassan Saleh, who was accused of being the mastermind behind the Black September massacre of Israeli Olympic athletes during the 1972 Olympic Games in Munich, Germany. Since the October 7, 2023 attacks on Israel by Hamas, the Mossad has been credited with some incredible operations that have shocked the entire world. Some of these remarkable operations include the pager attacks on Hezbollah fighters in Lebanon, the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, Iran, and many other covert operations across the Middle East, including Iran. The trailing and attempted capture of Umaru Dikko was a typical Mossad operation. The same modus operandi used in the capture of Eichmann in 1960 would be used in the planned capture of Umaru Dikko. It would take months of intelligence gathering, surveillance, and a great deal of bravado to carry out the operation. All these were Mossad's specialties. To achieve its objective, the Mossad put its extensive network of Sayanims to work. So, who are the Sayanims and why are they very important to the operation of the Mossad? Well, the Sayanim is a Hebrew word meaning helper or assistant. The Sayanims are known Israeli Jews living outside Israel and who assist Mossad in its operations. They are remarkably important to the operations of the Mossad. According to Gordon Thomas, author of Gideon Spies, without its Sayanims, Mossad could not operate. And of course, a Sayan is 100% Jewish and in many cases have dual nationality. Meanwhile, in the pursuit of Umaru Dikko, his personal preferences and physical characteristics were to be exploited in order to find him. Sayanims across Europe were put on red alert. His image and physical description were circulated among them and were memorized. Doctors were told to look out in case Umaru Dikko came in for plastic surgery. Lookouts were posted at hotels, car rental companies, airports, and other strategic places. Also, tailors were given his measurements and shoemakers were given his shoe size and details of his customized shoes. A publisher, Robert Maxwell, was allegedly recruited to exploit his contact for Dikko's whereabouts. So Dikko was truly up against a formidable intelligence machinery. After months of intense search, he was found. After Dikko was found in London, Alexander Barak, an Israeli alleged former Mossad agent, was recruited to lead the operation. Others included a Nigerian intelligence officer, Major Muhammad Yusuf, and other Israeli nationals, including Felix Abitol and Dr. Levi Ari Shapiro. Dr. Shapiro was recruited to inject Dikko with anesthetic and to ensure that his capture left no trace. On July 5, 1984, shortly after midday, Dikko emerged from his house to take a stroll before lunch. He was quickly grabbed by two men and bundled into a waiting van and zoomed off. After several minutes of navigating London's bustling streets, the van stopped and Dikko was transferred to a waiting truck near London Zoo. There, he was injected with a powerful respiratory depressant that rendered him unconscious. At about 3 p.m. on the same day, a van carrying two large crates escorted by two black Mercedes-Benz with Nigeria diplomatic license plate drove into Stansted Airport in Essex. The crates were designated as diplomatic cargo to avoid any checks. Meanwhile, a Nigerian Boeing 707 aircraft had arrived empty from Lagos to pick up diplomatic baggage from the Nigerian embassy. Speaking to the BBC, Mr. David Moreau, a custom officer who discovered the plot, said, "The day had gone fairly normally until about 3 p.m. Then we had the handling agent come through and say that there was a cargo due to go on the Nigerian Airways 707, but the people delivering it didn't want it manifested." Moreau continued, "I went downstairs to see who they were and what was happening. I met a guy who turned out to be a Nigerian diplomat called Mr. Okon Edeth. He showed me his passport and he said it was diplomatic cargo. Being ignorant of such matters, I asked him what it was and he told me it was just documents and things." At Stansted, no one on duty that hour had dealt with diplomatic bag before, so Mr. Moreau went to check the procedure. Just as he was checking how to handle the situation at hand, a colleague returned from the passenger terminal with some shocking news. There was an all-port bulletin from Scotland Yard saying that a Nigerian had been kidnapped and it was suspected that he would be smuggled out of the country. The police had been alerted by Mr. Dikko's secretary, Elizabeth Hayes, who had witnessed his abduction from a window in his house. On hearing the news, Mr. Moreau realized that he had a big problem on his hands. According to him, I just put 2 and 2 together. The classic custom approach is not to look for the goods, you look for the space. So I am looking out of the window and I can see the space, which is these 2 crates, clearly big enough to get a man inside. We have got the Nigerian Airways 707, which we don't normally see. They don't want the crates to manifest, so there will be no record of them having gone through, and there was very little other cargo going on board the aircraft. Despite these obvious giveaway signs, there was a problem. Any cargo designated as a diplomatic bag is protected by the Vienna Convention from being opened by custom officers. So, Mr. Moreau quickly called the British Foreign Office. Meanwhile, to fully qualify as diplomatic bag, the baggage has to satisfy at least 3 conditions. 1. It has to be marked with the words diplomatic bag. 2. It has to be accompanied by an accredited courier with the appropriate documentation. And 3. It must have the right paperwork. However, Moreau noted that the baggage did not satisfy all of these conditions. According to him, they did not have the right paperwork and they were not marked diplomatic bag. So, a decision was taken to open the crate strictly according to the rules. The rules required a Nigerian diplomat to be present, and already one was present. So, it was time to open the crate to unveil its contents. Mr. Peter, the cargo manager, hit the lid on the bottom and lifted it. And as he lifted it, the Nigerian diplomat who was standing next to Moreau took off like a startled rabbit across the tarmac. Mr. Moreau said, according to him, you have to remember we are standing in an airfield which is square miles of nothing. He ran about 5 yards or 4.5 meters, realized no one was chasing him, and then stopped. Meanwhile, Peter looked into the crate and said, there is bodies inside. Mr. Moreau then called 999 emergency number and reported the situation. About 30 minutes later, police started to arrive and they opened the second crate. Inside one of the crates was Mr. Umaru Dikko, unconscious and with no shirt, no shoes and no socks, but with handcuffs around his ankles. Also, he had a heart monitor on him with an endotracheal tube in his throat to keep his airways open. The Israeli anesthetist, Dr. Levi Ariel Shapiro, a 43-year-old Russian-born Israeli national, a consultant and director of the intensive care unit at Hashron Hospital, Tel Aviv, and a reserve major in the Israeli army, was in there with him, clearly to keep him alive. In the second crate were 31-year-old Tunisian-born Israeli national Felix Masoud Abitol and Alexander Barak, a 27-year-old Israeli national who worked for the Israeli Intelligence Corps after completing his military service. Following the discovery, Umaru Dikko was rushed to Hertfordshire and Essex Hospital in Bishop Stansford and only regained his consciousness about 36 hours later. The Nigerian Boeing 707 aircraft was grounded and 17 people in total were arrested on suspicion of involvement in the kidnap affair, including Okone Death and Peter Oyedele. At the Old Bailey, 4 conspirators, including Shapiro, Abitol, Barak, and Yusuf, faced justice. Barak and Abitol were given 14 years jail term each. Shapiro got 10 years and Major Yusufu got 12 years. Britain expels Nigeria's High Commissioner, freezes defense deals, and tear up all oil contracts. So, what do you make of this? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Click here for other interesting stories on our channel, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Hispu Media. It will go a long way to help us create more videos. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much for watching. Peace.